Okay. In the middle of the crowd. In the middle of the crowd functioning. We not too cool to be amongst the people. We're not too good to be amongst the people. All right. Yeah, that's a small gym, bro. That's like, that's like not even high school status. Let's take a look at listen to the
Consider the setting. That is no arena. It is barely a high school gym. Nevertheless, Caitlin Clark just arrived in West Virginia and converted a Butler Bulldogs tournament game into the premier ticket in the state. We are discussing a WNBA player sitting courtside in a venue resembling a community rec center, and suddenly, it's the most buzzed about basketball event that day. The Caitlin Clark effect is not decelerating. It's penetrating markets that have never cared about women's basketball before.
Well, look at what we have here today at the Greenbrier. Just a couple of Miss Iowa basketballs 20 years apart. And
Anna O'Neal was Miss Iowa basketball? That's pretty lit.
O'Neal, the great Anna O'Neal of Iowa State, and Caitlin Clark, of course, her long career in Iowa, that terrific journey, becoming the Division I all-time league scorer. But I'll tell you what, you were a heck of a shooter in your day, too.
Hey, okay, I never thought I'd be on a...
Allen Catholic, she, of course, from...
Oh, McCaffrey playing in this game.
West.
Separated by 2 decades, 2 Miss Iowa basketball honorees are featured, and the broadcast team frames the interaction as a reunion special, which is indicative of the phenomenon Caitlin Clark now represents. When she appears at an event, the entire production dynamically shifts to center on her presence. The commentators are not merely noting that she is in attendance, they are fundamentally restructuring the broadcast around her. From Dowling Catholic to the University of Iowa to the Indiana Fever, her career path has become must-see television, regardless of whether she is actively competing. But what makes this moment particularly significant is the context. This is not a WNBA sanctioned event, nor is it related to her alma mater. She is attending a Butler game in West Virginia, and the coverage treats it with the reverence of a state visit. That is the level of cultural penetration we are witnessing.
Bulldogs game. We got to check out Caitlin Clark in this new Chris Paul commercial, making an appearance, getting the commercial lit as usual.
Home, auto, State Farm this.
Oh, mascot Jake. Little guy. Tell me, you retiring? Oh, it's mascot Jake. So everyone says you're gonna.
Oh, the cameo. It's lit. It's lit. It's lit.
Is it true? You can tell me.
Oh, is this metal?
Are you going to retire?
Are you retiring?
Want to help with the auto, home, want to help.
Oh, it's puppy. What's your name, little guy? Tell me, you retiring? Oh, it's mascot Jake.
That's fire. Caitlin Clark taking over the State Farm commercial. It ain't even Chris commercial no more. This is a Caitlin Clark commercial.
And then there's State Farm. Watch this commercial closely, because it represents something the WNBA has been chasing for decades. Caitlin Clark isn't making a cameo in Chris Paul's commercial. She's not the supporting character brought in for diversity points. She's standing next to one of the most recognizable NBA players in advertising history, and she's holding her own screen time. The mascot chick bit works because State Farm is betting that Caitlin Clark has the same instant recognition with their audience that Chris Paul does. Think about what that means for a second. State Farm doesn't make these decisions lightly. They've got market research, they've got focus groups, they've got data on who moves the needle with their customer base, and they looked at that data and decided Caitlin Clark deserved equal billing with CP3. That's not WNBA hype, that's mainstream American advertising deciding a women's basketball player is worth the investment.
To this, guys, we have to move on to this right here. Kamilla Cardoso is officially Project B. It's starting to get sticky. It's starting to get real interesting. I'm starting to become afraid that there's not going to be a 2026 WNBA season. Although I still have hope because I feel like there's too much on the line for the owners and the players for there not to be.
Now we must discuss what is happening. While Caitlin Clark is taking over State Farm commercials in West Virginia gyms, Project B just announced 3 new signings, and the headliner is Kamilla Cardoso from the Chicago Sky, a 6'7" Brazilian second-year player, and she's now a player-partner owner in a league that's positioning itself as a direct competitor to the WNBA. The timing here is deliberate. The WNBA is in the middle of CBA negotiations. The players want a bigger piece of the revenue pie. The league is trying to figure out how to capitalize on the Caitlin Clark boom, and Project B is sitting there like a vulture, picking off talent while everyone's distracted.
They grab Li Ming, and they also grab Janelle Salon. So here it says from Project B, building the global game with global talent. Player, partner, owner, Kamilla Cardoso. Brazil-born, global stage, all power, pride, and championship energy. Player, partner, owner, Li Ming, Chinese star. Global motion. Oh, they said motion. Okay. Leadership, precision, and clutch every time it counts. Player, partner, owner, Janelle Salon. French roots, global future. Rising star energy, taking the game to the next level.
However, Kamilla Cardoso is not the entire narrative. Project B unveiled 3 player acquisitions in a single day, and the strategy at play is revealing. They secured Li Ming from China. They acquired Janelle Solange from France. They signed Kamilla Cardoso from Brazil. This is not a random assortment of talent. This is a deliberate global expansion strategy. Project B is explicitly marketing itself as the global alternative to the WNBA. They are not attempting to be more American than the WNBA. Their objective is to be more international. They are architecting a league that can assert legitimacy in China, France, and Brazil concurrently. That is a market the WNBA has been attempting to penetrate for years, and Project B is achieving this by making these international players not merely participants but actual owners with equity stakes. The term they consistently use is player, partner, owner. That is not just marketing jargon. That is a foundational restructuring of how a women's basketball league can operate. These players are not employees, they are stakeholders, and that fundamentally shifts the entire dynamic of how the league expands and who reaps the rewards of that growth.
Announcement is coming. A Kelsey Mitchell announcement is coming. A Maureen Johanna's announcement is coming. I'm wondering who else is going to get announced here in the near future. We see Diana Taurasi and Cynthia Cooper now follow Sarah Spain. They're going to be doing some sort of work in it. A touch more with Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe. They are being followed. Maybe they'll be doing some official coverage for Project B as well. This is all interesting, man. There are so many more announcements to come out about this thing, but in the midst of the WNBA CBA negotiation, this is crazy.
And then there's the media infrastructure being built around Project B. Diana Taurasi and Cynthia Cooper are now following the league's social media accounts. Sue Bird's name is being floated. Sarah Spain is involved. These aren't random retired players looking for something to do. These are the most credible voices in women's basketball history, and they're aligning themselves with a league that doesn't even have a finalized schedule yet. That should terrify the WNBA, because what Project B is building isn't just a competing league, it's a competing ecosystem. They're not just signing players, they're signing the commentators, they're signing the analysts, they're building the media apparatus that will legitimize everything they do. The WNBA has spent 30 years building credibility with mainstream sports media. Project B is trying to shortcut that process by just hiring the people who built that credibility in the first place.
It's absolute madness, and the WNBA has to just be frustrated at this point.
Kamilla Cardoso. Hi everyone, Kamilla Cardoso here. I'm really excited to finally announce that I'll be joining Project B. Being able to travel, getting to know new places, this is such a blessing that I don't take for granted. I'm also super proud of being able to represent Brazil, and I can't wait to get it started. Let's get it. Hi everyone.
Wow.
Listen to how Kamilla Cardoso speaks about Project B. She isn't just excited about playing basketball. She's talking about travel. She's talking about representing Brazil on a global stage. She's talking about this being a blessing. That's the language of someone who feels valued in a way she hasn't before. And that is the real threat Project B poses. It is not that they are offering more money, though they probably are. It's that they are offering something the WNBA has struggled to provide. A sense that players are building something together, not just working for someone else's league.
WNBA, we got to figure this.
Li Ming, speaking in Chinese during her announcement video, is a perfect encapsulation of what Project B is trying to accomplish. They're not just creating content for American audiences, they're creating content that plays in international markets with the same level of production value and respect. The WNBA has international players, obviously, but when was the last time you saw a WNBA promotional video that was designed to play in China first and America second? That's the difference. Project B is treating international markets as primary audiences, not secondary considerations. Here's what makes this entire situation so precarious for the WNBA. They're in the middle of CBA negotiations that could determine the future of the league. The players want a bigger revenue share. The owners are trying to figure out how to balance expansion with profitability. And while everyone's focused on that internal negotiation, Project B is building an external alternative that doesn't have any of the WNBA's baggage. Project B doesn't have a history of low salaries to overcome. They don't have a reputation for treating players as expendable. They don't have decades of poor marketing decisions haunting them. They get to start fresh with a clean slate and a player ownership model that makes every signing feel like a partnership rather than an employment contract. And the timing couldn't be worse for the WNBA. This is supposed to be their moment. Caitlin Clark just delivered the highest rated season in league history. Attendance records were shattered. Merchandise sales exploded. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark gave them a rivalry that transcended women's basketball and became a mainstream sports story. Everything the WNBA has been working toward for 3 decades finally came together in 2024. And now they're at risk of squandering it because they can't get a CBA deal done while a competitor league is actively recruiting their players with a better business model. Think about the position this puts players in. If you're Kamilla Cardoso, you're a second-year player on the Chicago Sky. The team finished at the bottom of the standings. Your future in Chicago is uncertain. The WNBA is offering you a salary that requires you to play overseas in the offseason just to make a decent living. And then Project B comes along and offers you not just a paycheck, but actual ownership equity in a league that's positioning itself as the future of women's basketball. That's not a hard decision. That's an obvious decision. And here's the thing about beat reporters and media coverage that the WNBA needs to understand. The narrative is shifting in real time. 6 months ago, Project B was a curiosity. It was Unrivaled's competitor. It was something people were watching but not taking seriously. Now Diana Taurasi is involved. Sue Bird's name is being mentioned. Kamilla Cardoso is signing. International stars are joining. The media infrastructure is being built. At what point does Project B stop being the other league and start being the alternative league? Because that's the inflection point the WNBA needs to worry about. Once Project B establishes itself as a legitimate alternative rather than a fringe competitor, the entire power dynamic changes. Watch that initial Kamilla Cardoso announcement again. She's not apologizing for leaving the WNBA. She's not explaining why she had to make this difficult choice. She's celebrating. She's excited. She's treating this like an upgrade, not a lateral move. Now compare that to how WNBA players talk about their league. There's always this undercurrent of frustration. They love the game, but they're constantly advocating for better conditions, better pay, better treatment, better media coverage. The WNBA player experience has always been defined by fighting for recognition and respect. Project B is offering something different. They're offering a league where players don't have to fight for equity because they already have it. They're offering a league where international players aren't afterthoughts, but foundational pieces. They're offering a business model that aligns player success with league success in a way the WNBA has never managed to do. The contrast reveals something important about where women's basketball is heading. The WNBA had a monopoly for so long that they never had to truly compete for players. Sure, overseas leagues offered more money, but they didn't offer the prestige of playing in America. They didn't offer the stability of a league backed by the NBA. They didn't offer the media exposure that comes with being part of the American sports ecosystem. Project B is trying to offer all of that while also offering ownership equity. That's the innovation here. They're not just competing with the WNBA on salary, they're competing on structure. They're saying the entire model of how a women's basketball league operates needs to change, and they're building that change from the ground up. The WNBA's response to this has been mostly silence, which is probably the worst possible strategy. They need to be making noise right now. They need to be announcing their own innovations. They need to be showing players that staying in the WNBA is the better long-term decision. Instead, they're bogged down in CBA negotiations that are taking so long that players are starting to wonder if there's even going to be a 2026 season. And that's where the real danger lies. If the WNBA and the Players Association can't reach a deal and there's a work stoppage, Project B is going to be right there, ready to absorb every displaced player who wants to keep playing. They're going to position themselves as the league that kept women's basketball alive, while the WNBA was too busy fighting with itself to operate. That would be a catastrophic outcome for the WNBA. They've spent 30 years building this. They've survived financial losses, low attendance, minimal media coverage, and constant skepticism skepticism about whether women's basketball could ever be commercially viable, and just when they finally break through with mainstream success, they risk losing it all because they can't figure out how to share the revenue with the players who made that success possible. So the question becomes, was the old model worth protecting? The WNBA has operated under a structure where players get a relatively small percentage of revenue compared to their NBA counterparts. The argument has always been that the league isn't profitable enough to pay more. But if that model is so unsustainable that players are leaving for a competitor league that offers equity instead of just salary, then maybe the model itself is the problem. Project B is betting that players will choose ownership over employment. They're betting that international players will choose a truly global league over an American league with international participants. They're betting that the media figures who built the WNBA's credibility will be willing to build credibility for a new league if the compensation and structure are better, and based on these announcements, those bets are starting to pay off. Kamilla Cardoso isn't a marginal player. She's a recent top draft pick with all-star potential. Li Meng is a legitimate star in China. Janelle Salahoun is one of the top young prospects in France. These aren't players at the end of their careers looking for one last payback. These are players who should be building their legacies in the WNBA, and they're choosing to build them elsewhere. The WNBA needs to wake up. Caitlin Clark, taking over West Virginia and State Farm commercials, is great for the league's visibility, but visibility doesn't matter. If the players who generate that visibility decide they'd rather play somewhere else, the league needs to finalize this CBA. They need to give players a reason to stay. They need to show that the WNBA is still the premier destination for women's basketball talent, because right now, Project B is making a very compelling case that the future of women's basketball doesn't have to include the WNBA at all. And if the league doesn't take that threat seriously, they're gonna look back on 2024 as the year they had everything and lost it because they couldn't get out of their own way. So here's my question for you. If you're a WNBA player right now, are you staying with the league or taking a serious look at what Project B is offering? Because I'm not sure the answer is as obvious as the WNBA wants it to be. Drop your take in the comments. And if you want to see how this CBA negotiation plays out, make sure you're subscribed because this story is just getting started.